Right. Oh. Okay. Sorry about that. Right. Gonna talk today with Emma James. Hello, Emma.
Hi Dave, how are you?
I'm not bad. How's yourself? Apart from suffering from some strange Russian flu.
Infestation of nuclear capacity, apparently, as my husband says.
Okay. Now, um, people outside of powerlifting probably won't know who you are. So, can you just tell us, firstly, the federation and what you do within the federation?
Oh, what now?
Yeah. Now.
um, I'm president of the British Powerlifting Union, which set up in 2013. And, geez, what can it's either a very short or very long answer on that one. The long and the short of it, I suppose, is it was a rapidly expanding federation, which everybody said wouldn't work. And we just kind of focused on the lifter. So we actually kind of took a humanist approach, I suppose you could say, I suppose in a strength sport, which is a bit of an odd approach, but for some
So,
reason, somehow it kind of worked.
so for those that don't follow powerlifting, I suppose in a way the ethos of the BPU is similar to that of the PCA within bodybuilding, where they've tried to focus on putting the competitors first.
Well, absolutely, because there wouldn't be a federation if it wasn't for the competitors.
But it seems that a
Um,
lot of federations have forgotten that.
well, and also you've got all of us that run it. We all compete. We
Yeah.
all compete. So it still affects us if we go to a bad comp. Or the usual shit happens. And you can't. You've got to look after the people that are paying the memberships, and they're the ones that have to come first.
Now, talking about competing, you're quite an accomplished lifter yourself, aren't you?
No, I don't know about recently, but yes, there was. No, I'm having my own issues. Thanks very much. You should probably be talking to somebody else at the moment.
I don't
uh,
know. What did you bench when you competed the other week?
what in Russia, the,
Yeah.
the nuclear attack Russia? I benched 205 kilos at 81 kilos body weight. That was a single ply. I was aiming for 215 to try and match my all-time best and one of the biggest ever in history in the world single ply bench press of any female.
So
Um,
you're obviously a record holder
Multiple. I don't really know how many I've got now. But ten times world's record, world title holder.
then.
Um,
Only bench?
Sorry, say again, Dave.
Only bench press? You don't squat? You don't dead?
I did used to. I actually retired from full powerlifting in 2000. So, having done it since 16, don't start working out any maths. Don't you dare.
I'm not saying a word.
You
It's
better not.
rude to discuss a lady's age. Come on, I know
Well,
that.
I decided not to compete in the Masters anymore because I didn't have any competition, and then went back to Open, and then everybody moved weight classes. So I'd rock up at a comp world championships. Like in Miami, I think I had four other women in my class, and they all changed weight class.
So you were on your own.
On my own again, yeah. But Olympia this year was a lot different. I actually had four other women um, who were all benching over 180, which was great.
So a bit of competition for once then.
Yeah, it was great, and they were ever so nice. So,
Does it
and
get
it was the
lonely?
Olympia.
Does it get lonely at the top?
It gets very pressured.
Because
It
you're
gets
always a victim of your own successes.
kind of, and you're always trying to chase the numbers that you did before. I actually said to my husband last night, I feel like I'm starting to get a bit of a bore and one of those war story people. When I benched 215 in 2014, like you'll never kind of come back to that. And you get so close. I was so close in Russia to actually equaling my best ever at a lower body weight, well, 10k less.
Yeah.
Um, and fucked it up. So
Basically.
yeah, I mean nobody else to blame but myself. So it's
No.
Yeah, it actually increases pressure. This is one of the things actually that I worked with in the past with clients, was actually managing pressure, which can have a seriously detrimental physiological effect, which then of course affects your performance. So,
Now talking about your work, this is the main reason we're talking today. Is can you, in as layman terms as possible,
um,
explain what you do?
okay. I had a long history as a psychotherapist, but also I was an NLP trainer for an awfully long time and applied it to sport. Um, so that progressed. I kind of got burnt out. I was running courses and I was working with clients all over the world. And I just completely got burnt out. The market changed. I lost heart in the neurolinguistics. Stopped running trainings, went back to university. So I've been studying and then in research, um, specializing in the neurological aspects of high pressure environments and decision to shoot. My MSc at King's College London is my master's is in war and psychiatry. My previous background is psychology and neuropsychology, and I'm just going on a PhD now. Um, but I applied an awful lot of that to sport, and I was
So,
recognizing an awful lot of patterns when I was going through all that training that were actually happening to me on platform and happening to me when I was competing bodybuilding. And I was seeing private clients, and I'd always said I'd never worked with sports people, and then did, and then found that actually a lot of the theoretical stuff actually worked.
so basically, it's you're dealing with performance or performance inhibition, as in performance problems due to the
Mhm.
pressure of the occasion.
Pretty much. I would have loved at the time, because I'm back in the university and research system kind of full time. Um, I don't get the opportunity now really to see that many private clients. I haven't got the time, but when I was in full flow, I would have dearly liked to have seen so many more people that actually wanted to optimize performance rather than just wait until a problem hit and then try and fix it. I always thought this was one of the huge downfalls of and particularly strength sports. Is this I'm fine, or I don't need any help to get any better because I'm just great, um, and not dealing with anything until a problem actually hits you. I think I think that it hinders performance.
Well, I mean, that is one thing with the strength. I mean, obviously in bodybuilding, your day you stand on stage and compete, it's pretty much all done.
It
So
is absolutely.
you just like it's like, well, it's shit a bus now because I can't change anything. I've done the work for the last however many months, years,
Yeah,
whatever it may be.
yeah.
But with powerlifting, you've got three shots, and obviously you fuck one up, and that pressure must ramp astronomically for the next two lifts.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, very much. I mean, that was one of the things I was known for was actually missing my first lift and then my second, get my third.
Getting the third.
Yeah. So, I did that in Louisiana last year, actually, World Championships. Got it on my third, but um, yeah, it does. I mean, the pressure does ramp up, and depending on the individual and the level of self-esteem that they've actually got, will also predict the amount of anxiety that they're going to have pre-competition and the amount of internal negative self-talk and also projection, internal visual projection of what they presuppose is going to happen at competition, which they then actually project onto the lift and their performance. Is that a
So
bit convoluted?
how can you? I mean, this is probably a really difficult question to answer, but could you put into actual numbers on the bar what sort of difference programming and preparing yourself and being able to deal with the stress can make?
Oh gosh, I mean, it does depend on the individual. Um, in powerlifting terms, it will affect you to the point that you actually will feel like all the strength has just disappeared out through the bottom of your feet.
Yeah.
And that you have nothing. So you'll have a massive cortisol response. Um, it would be, I'm desperately trying to think, can I put a percentage on it? And I can't. It does depend on the individual, but it can make such a significant difference.
Do you have an example then of anybody in particular that you could sort of say, well, this client was having this problem, we worked with them,
Um,
this was the result?
Outside of strength sports, one particular boxer who was a world title fighter, client of mine, he had described when he first came to me about a feeling. He was warming up, he was with his trainer, going through all the usual drills, and then he actually started to think about the end of the fight. He started to worry about gassing out because that was one of the main issues, was the fitness side of it. And he'd also had an incident in one of his previous fights. That's what we were working on, that he was worried about happening again. And he was actually thinking about that and thinking about the end of the fight and losing the fight. And he described a feeling of his feet starting to get heavier and heavier and losing his ability to move. And that's whenever they decided to get some help. But also one particular strongman who had an injury. I'm trying to remember whether he'd actually had his Achilles had gone. He'd had it reattached. There was something. And he described the same thing that I personally had, the feeling of all of the strength literally disappearing out through his feet to the point that he couldn't pick the farmers up. So, and again, that's whenever he realized that he needed to do something. But it can make a slight difference until you get your first event or your first lift in, and then things start to correct. Or it can make a significant difference to the point that you'll get buried.
So it very much is a case of your performance can be completely led by how you think you're going to perform.
Well, your hormones.
Well, I suppose we've all experienced it in the gym sometimes where we'll go in and when things are going well in training and we're lifting heavy and we're lifting stronger, it seems to feed a momentum that continues because we are positive and we feel we're going to be successful and we feel we're going to gain every week and we feel we're going to get stronger every week, that we create a little bit of a momentum and we do progress a lot faster than we would normally.
But it's also a safe environment. It's a safe environment with less stress, less pressure. You don't project judgment on yourself because you're in a safe environment. You don't feel as though you're actually being judged by others and living up to the performance that I think others will expect for you or yourself. But I mean, look, let's put this in terms of, say, combat, okay, which is my area previously of research and hopefully again shortly. You've got the HPA axis, okay, so you've got this really sexy little axis which produces hormone levels or produces hormone responses. Now, there's a number of things that happen whenever you get into a fight or flight situation. Effectively, anything that you perceive as threat will increase your stress levels and will activate the HPA. So you've got cortisol and also adrenaline suddenly being secreted and fired. Now, these do a multitude of things, as you know, Dave, because you are a bit of an expert in all this. Yeah, of course you are. Judging by the phone calls that we've had. Now, you've got so many things that happen. You're now into identification of threat. Now, this can be competition. It can be the bar. It can be a referee. It can be the fact that you're in that situation.
I suppose to a degree it could even be yourself.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. But you've got a number of processes that are happening. You've got reduced amounts of oxygen, which is being diverted to other parts of the body away from the prefrontal cortex. In other words, your actual cognitive process, being able to think and actually think clearly and reason. So your ability to start reasoning out the fact that you're not actually under that much pressure. You know you've done this before, and start to control the anxiety and control those levels and allow yourself to feel just as strong as you do in the gym because you don't see that environment as a threat, this all starts to change. So you've actually got a narrowing of your vision. Okay, so your actual peripheral vision reduces by 70%. Now, in combat terms, they also call this gun focus. So you actually stop seeing anything else outside of the thing that you perceive as a threat. Okay, so you focus on the gun. You don't see the other people, maybe who are armed or whatever, around that are actually the real threat. You start missing stuff because your peripheral vision narrows. Your ability to think cognitively and reason reduces because of the reduced oxygenation. Your cortisol has increased. Your heart rate has increased to try and push through so much more glycogen to enable you to actually fight or run. So you've got a number of processes happening as soon as you're into a competing environment, which start to severely affect your ability to actually reason. But they also have a direct effect on you physically at the same time. If you don't deal with that or take steps prior to competition, if you know that you start feeling pressured or anxious, you're actually reducing your physical ability exponentially. I have to keep such a handle on my own, it's untrue. My own doesn't get fixed. I just learn how to manage it. Did I just wang on forever there?
No, you're all right.
Sorry.
No. It's so how does somebody? I mean, in layman's terms, it's like pre-fight nerves, isn't it? It's that fear of failure that then becomes failure.
Yeah.
So how does someone even begin to start to deal with this? I mean, is it a visualization process where you go through seeing yourself successfully doing the lift, or is it a distraction process where you try and distract the brain with other factors? What do you do?
It's trying to combat all the stuff that the hormone levels and the hormone secretion are going to be doing. You will still have nerves to a degree, but it's trying to stabilize them. So you've got a combination of things that you need to do. Number one is to identify what is it specifically that you're anxious about. Is it fear of bad performance, fear of bombing out, fear of looking like a tit? Well,
no, but it's true. I mean, it is a very true fear, especially if you have a reputation of being strong in the gym that's preceded you into the comp, or like you say, you're a reigning champion or a reigning record holder. I mean, I know I speak to Andy Bolton quite a bit, and I know he's had issues because of where he was. Best first man in the world to deadlift over 1,000 pounds, and he struggled when he's not been at his best to accept that he's not at the best. And like you say, you can build a reputation to a point where you're expected to be this certain person. And we all have off days.
Oh my God, yeah.
So, you were saying, sorry, because I interrupted then.
No.
4 minutes to what you were perceived to be able to do.
There's actually a positive to coming back from something negative. It actually reduces pressure to a degree. It's almost like like a double-edged sword.
Yeah, that's how I see that.
On the one hand, you've got the pressure to try and come back and lift or compete at the same level that you did before and surpass that. That's more of an internal thing. It's a self-produced, projected expectation. On the other hand, you've also got a huge advantage when you've had something really crap happen to you. I mean, Ali's been through the wars. I mean, he's been through, so much. But he will also be aware that nobody is expecting him to actually do that.
Yes.
And it actually takes the pressure off a little bit. I had elbow surgery pretty major in March. And I didn't know if I was going to be able to bench again. And it actually did take the pressure off. a little bit, because you know that other people are not actually expecting. You've got your own expectation that you desperately want to achieve the same and above, but you are also aware that others won't expect the same from you. So there is kind of a positive that is out of that.
So would
But
you
if you
say?
don't have that,
Mm-hmm.
then the pressure's really fucking on. Excuse my French.
That's fine. My channel's known for its swearing. Don't worry about that. And so, would you say being the underdog actually gives you an advantage?
Yeah, it does. And certainly, so a lot of the clients that I've had who were coming back from something, either a major loss, very public major loss, and we've worked on all of the issues around that. When they come back into competition, they know that people are not really expecting to see them doing the same or as well, or coming back from injury, or just coming back full stop after a long layoff. It can actually give you an advantage. And a number of clients have always said that it's actually better when they were the underdog. Because the expectation, nobody was expecting them to win, and they actually fought harder.
Because they wanted to prove something more.
Yeah.
And I suppose there is an element of defiance in a lifter's character, which sort of is why they do it in the first place, because it is going against the grain, isn't it? I mean, it's you're trying to do something that people say can't be done.
Oh, well, there's a huge amount of tosspot in a lifter's character, I can tell you that. I've been dealing with that this morning.
There's arseholes in every sport, Emery. Fucking amount of egotistical pricks in bodybuilding is unreal.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is that ultimately we are all a load of tosspots, So, I mean, we're all fighting against the norm. We've probably mostly been judged as not being the norm. We've probably mostly had criticism. There's probably been negative comments.
I'm perfectly normal.
David, you are so average, it's unbelievable.
I am.
No, I mean, most of us have had, an awful lot of us don't fit in. I mean, this is one of the things that I said. I mean, when the federation was first set up, our lifters were the misfits. They weren't the big hairy guys that kind of went out on platform beating their chest. A lot of my people were people that wanted to progress and wanted to do something where they felt they actually belonged. So for a lot of those people, quite often, if you look at an awful lot of lifters' past history, they've had to go through a period of post-traumatic growth. And so these people generally have had to overcome something. And so the barriers that they have seem to be less. Now, there's a very good professor of mine who's hopefully going to be a supervisor and PhD for me, called Professor Vince Walsh, who has looked at this in a sports performance capacity for many years. And there's a resilience and post-traumatic growth elements in so many of athletes in competition across a multitude of sports. And he believes that it's because the actual barriers are reduced on ability, because they've managed to overcome significantly emotional or traumatic events in their past and had to fight. And so there becomes a level of normality. Part of the issue with that, though, is that you become accustomed to having to fight, and so you assume you have to fight for everything, when in fact, and use it almost as a negative driver.
Yes.
Instead of actually working towards something, you're actually fighting against. And that eventually down the line actually starts to degrade your confidence rather than boosting it, because you never actually allow yourself any congratulations for what you've achieved.
I can relate to that one, definitely. I mean, we've spoken in the past about where my previous drivers have been very much negative.
Yeah.
And very much, fuck you all, I'm going to prove you all fucking wrong.
It does work in circumstances, but long term, it really starts to degrade your confidence.
Yeah, I've had to have a transition because my personal life is in a very, very good place and has been for some time now, where it never used to be.
Mm.
And I've found that those negative drivers are definitely not as positive. I know it sounds a bit crazy, but not as positive as they used to be in pushing me forward. Going slightly off that, but sort of still attached, there's been a bit of chatter more recently about the mental health of lifters.
Mm.
Now, this has been tied in with drug use, but I'm not wanting to go down a drug use route, to be honest. I want to stick predominantly with just the mental health of lifters. Now, I
I'll
know
go
very
down
much,
drug use. I'll go down that route.
well, okay, it was just, I mean, I'm a great believer that the drugs do complicate mental issues within lifters, very much so.
Yeah.
But predominantly within bodybuilding, I am definitely seeing that a large number of people that get into the fitness industry in one form or another, be it competitive bodybuilding or casual bodybuilding, that their body image actually worsens and they actually become almost more depressed about the way they look.
Yeah.
And it seems to be that the whole lifestyle is a breeding ground for insecurity and associated issues with that. And I didn't know, do you see that within in powerlifting as well?
Yeah. And I saw it in bodybuilding as well, and I've been subject to it myself. So, it's most certainly. Many of the performance enhancing drugs have got a knock on effect that it will polarize and exacerbate any sort of pre existing psychological issue. It doesn't have to be a major psychiatric or doesn't have to be a major psychopathology or
No.
psychological problem which is diagnosable. It doesn't have to be major. But any of the chinks in our armor, in our mental armor, will be exacerbated by a number of performance enhancing drugs. And also, as we both know, there's one or two drugs, which have got a particular reputation for it.
Well,
Um,
it's an underdog family, isn't it? Let's not beat about the brush.
well, yeah. So, but other ones which would be fine for one person um, may have some quite extreme effects on someone else. I mean, this is kind of where I'm thankful for the ABPU, which is the drugs tested side, because frankly, there is far less histrionics, issues, backbiting, bitching, breakdowns, from the ABPU side, and I honestly think that it's because of the lack of drug use.
So you've actually seen the difference between the tested and the non-tested sides of the fed, because your
There's
federation
a
has
huge
both.
difference. I mean, yes, of course, you've got the odd person, that can't stop saying I'm natural or whatever, and sort of,
Oh,
but you know,
yeah, it's
well,
like vegans, isn't it? They just can't help but say it.
but it's that's their right and it's their prerogative. But there is a distinct difference between the two sides of the federation.
That's
Um,
interesting that
yeah,
you're seeing more mental instability within the competition ranks of the federation between users and non-users,
yeah.
and less incident regards bitchiness and insecurities based around that as well.
You can
Um,
actually watch it happen pre-competition.
yeah.
You can actually, yeah, yeah, yeah. If
I
you
bet for
watch,
you that's really interesting to be able to just sort of sit on the guidelines and guinea pig everybody.
well, no, it's fascinating. I mean, it is fascinating. I have said it online. Particularly coming up to say British Championships, you've got you've got certain lifters that are just getting terribly excited. And there's lots of whooping and arm waving and woo, I'm going to be competing at the British. And then you've got another lot that are all getting upset because somebody said that their arms look small or something. It's kind of or somebody else had a better squat suit, or somebody was an inch higher on their squat, they didn't get their out. I'm like, oh, for fuck's sake, man. Just knock the tread on the head for fuck's sake.
Do
But
you?
it's kind of what
Go on, that's all right. Finish what you were going to say.
it's, but and this is not dissing anyone, because obviously I'm BPU and non-tested, and I went non-tested at 30. So I had a long time, sort of not using anything, and also having been a therapist, you're very aware of your own mental state. A lot of the time, you have to be.
Yes.
So it's you do see a change, and particularly online, and with the research that I've been doing at King's, and particularly the last thesis that I wrote, which is about group dynamics and conflict, although it's actually again about war and terrorism, and outgroup the creation of the suspect community as per the 1974 Terrorism Act. I was having to go into an awful lot of detail on group dynamics and conflict. And the odd thing is that you can actually see all of the in-group and out-group mentality starting to happen pre-major competition within powerlifting. Just watching it happen online.
Do you find just the exposure to competition affects people quite dramatically mentally? I mean, in the sense that, see, within the bodybuilding community, people will get into fitness lifestyle and they probably think, you know what, I don't look so bad. Then they enter this world and they're bombarded with imagery from, some of it very high standard athletes with very accomplished physiques, irrespective if there's drug use in there or not. All of a sudden, they've got this comparative, and it's like, ugh, actually, I'm a bit shit. And I've seen it happen with a lot of people where they've come in quite level-headed, quite a decent balance on life, and then 12 months later, they're a mess. They're obsessed. They don't have balance anymore, and they're constantly beating themselves up because they're constantly comparing themselves to these physiques that are the elite. Do you find that within powerlifting as well?
Oh, you're making me think now. Damn, I thought I was going to have a day of not having to think.
You're a clever lady. You're not getting away with not thinking, girl.
No, I'm post-nuclear infestation, Russian cold. Let me think. Do I see that? To a degree, but oddly, most of the people that are reasonably new in the sport seem to be very happy to take it steady and progress. There's occasional ones that desperately want to push fast. I mean, really fast, and will do anything. Will do absolutely anything to try and do that. So they're actually trying to do stuff that their strength levels are not capable of. Sort of whatever it may be. Whether it may be equipment or the training style or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
But to a degree, yes. But just going back to your point about bodybuilding, you may be interested in me. You're making me think. You have somebody that maybe hasn't looked that critically at their own physique before.
Very much. Well, they haven't had a comparative, have they? So,
yeah.
It's like that big fish in a little pond situation where, in your environment at that point, you may be the best physique in your social circle. And then suddenly you go in with that confidence into a world and suddenly find actually you're a very small fish in a very, very big pond.
Well,
some people that motivates, some people that demotivates. But I've seen so many people just, for one of a non-technical term, go a little bit nuts. Because
so.
They cannot cope with what they perceive as this massive pressure to compare to these, in some cases, just outright genetic freaks.
Yeah.
The other thing that I've seen is probably not as prevalent in powerlifting is the amount of social disorders and eating disorders that start to become apparent. The amount of people that aren't in a competition phase, they're not dieting for a show or anything like that, and they're refusing to attend social events because it would mean breaking their diet. And they've had a cheat of a lick of a chocolate bar that week, or they sniffed a wine gum, and so they can't possibly consume something else that's not on the diet. Now, what worries me, or what I find disturbing, is that within the fitness community, that's almost encouraged and praised as being hardcore. You know, oh,
It
you're
is, but
so dedicated. And I'm sat there thinking, you're a sad bastard. Get a fucking life.
but
Because,
is that not more general perception though, Dave? You've got some people that they'll have perfectionist. They'll maybe have a level of perfectionism or have perfectionist issues verging on OCD, but let's face it, you have to have a level of perfectionism or mild OCD in order to compete at top level, if
yeah,
that's
no,
what you want to
well, no,
do.
I mean, you cannot say that, you know, you have to be a certain type of driven individual to reach the top in any sport. And
Yeah.
I think if you were to sort of analyze top athletes across the board, you'd probably come back that they're all a bit skewy, really. Um, but this what I see is this large grouping of amateur that even by their own admission, you know, they're not going to be world standard. They're not even going to be British final standard. And to me, the giving up. I'm all for dedication. All right, I am all for being dedicated and trying to achieve your goals. But I think people lose sight of balance as well. In that you're not earning money out of this. It doesn't put food on the table. And do you really enjoy being that restrictive with yourself? And what damage is it doing to you as a person because you're refusing to socially interact with people? I mean,
Well,
I don't socially interact because I'm a miserable git, but um, people just annoy me, so I don't bother going out and see people. But
I mean,
it's,
it could be a combination of things. You can have some people that yes, they will take it to I'm not going to say an extreme level. I'm going to say to a highly competitive level.
hmm,
And the one thing I that I couldn't quite get my own head around, but this is all personal parameters, was the fact that I was still able to go and travel and attend social events, but I just take my food with me, and disappear, go off into the kitchen and have my dinner or whatever,
well,
and
yeah. But the thing is, I mean, you can go out for a meal with friends and just pick steak and seasonal vegetables, and you're not really breaking any targets.
and
It's not
nowadays
workaround.
most nowadays most restaurants will actually do grilled chicken breasts or whatever. You used to have to go to the States to be able to do that,
No,
but
they're
you can actually,
very accommodating now. I found that
yeah,
restaurants are really, really good at taking the raw ingredients from a dish and actually changing the way they cook them if you request it.
yeah,
But
but you can actually do it now here, whereas you didn't really used to. It was very difficult. But I do understand. I understand what you're saying, that they're not attending social events, but then also maybe with a lot of these individuals, they may be introvert to a degree anyway.
I just, yeah, I've seen people change. I have genuinely seen people change. And I just think, you know, they all go on about physical health, but they seem to neglect the mental
The
health.
mental health. Yeah,
And the amount, when you bring this subject up in a forum, on a page, or anything like that, pretty much everybody that responds has some sort of issue. And it's like, so does bodybuilding just attract all the nutters? Or is there something in what we do and the way it's perceived and the way it's marketed and the way it's visualized actually feeding problems with people's mental health?
probably the motivation for getting into bodybuilding in the first place is due to a deficit anyway.
Yeah, you've got to be a little bit not normal too. I mean,
I'm not
well,
suggesting non-normal.
all right, let me put it this way, okay?
Yeah, go on.
Here is a 10 ml glass bottle with a yellowy brown fluid in it. I can't really tell you what it is. I can't really tell you if it's pure. I can't tell you what it's made of or where it's come from, but shove it in your fucking ass, it's going to make you massive.
Mm. And they'll do it.
Is that really the reasoning of a well balanced individual?
Well, I was trying to be diplomatic when I said deficit. I was trying to kind of cover all bases with deficit and still sound professional, but it's kind of, um,
It
yeah. I
does
mean,
seem though
look,
that maybe not so much in powerlifting, but I definitely see a lot in body. I'm just the fitness industry and world, but it seems
yeah.
to be. a breeding ground for mental health issues. In that
I do agree with that. I mean,
it's not actually, it's probably actually manifesting these problems and increasing them more than it's helping them.
but it will do because you are having to focus on you all the time. You know, your ability to interact with others reduces consistently
Yeah.
and more over time because as you improve or as your focus increases, you're consistently looking at you, what happens to you, you're checking how you look, what you're doing, how it's affecting you. Your ability to start comparing or interacting with others and actually thinking about others is significantly reduced. That time spent has to be about you.
It is
You
a
know,
selfish endeavor, isn't it?
well, yeah, it is. I mean, it is a selfish sport. I think powerlifting is a selfish sport as well, but maybe in a different way. But again, it polarizes on the self, and you can also end up with quite a distorted vision, as you know, and you've seen, you've come
I've
across
experienced. I've
over
experienced
and
it
over
myself.
again.
A failure to actually see what I'm looking at in the mirror.
Yeah, well, you do get to a point where you actually can't see anymore.
No, no, definitely. Been there, got the t-shirt, still have it to some degree.
Mm.
Do not see the physical representation of myself in its true form. And
Do you-
I will look at pictures, and photographs are bad for this, in that you'll look at a photograph and think, shit, do I really look like that? Both
mm.
positive and negative. I've looked back at just recently because my wife found a lot of old pictures of me on the phone when I was a lot leaner. And I was like, bloody hell, I,
Oh,
I don't remember being that lean. You know,
yeah,
I
because
don't remember
you
being in
didn't
that
see it
condition
that way.
I didn't, because the goal was condition at the time, I couldn't see the
Yeah,
condition I was achieving. When the
right.
goal was size, I couldn't see the size I was achieving.
All
Um,
right. Let's put it this way. Okay, let's put it this way. You've got two things that happen when you first look at something. You've got what you call an F1 and F2 stop. Your F1 stop is just visual recognition. That's all. So you are looking at it. F2 is where you start labeling. So you put on how do you feel about it? What are you comparing it to? Um, uh, am I fat? Am I in condition? Have I lost body fat? Have I put on size? You start adding all of the labels, and that's when the distortion happens. So I had oh God, this is going back quite some time. This is going to sound crazy, but it worked. Applying the F1, F2 stop, even though it happens incredibly quickly, um, I, I did get one client to literally leap in front of the mirror. Right? I mean, literally just leap in front of the mirror, right? And I know,
no,
and
I've got,
and
you know what
it's like,
bodybuilders are like,
ta-da!
looking in any mirror they can see. We walk past a shiny fucking window, we look at ourselves.
Always, and still. So leap in front of the mirror, and the very first thing that you see and how you see it, that is actually how you're looking before you start slapping all the labels and actually looking at yourself and start distorting the picture. Obviously, it doesn't work with everybody, and it's a bit of a crazy thing. But it was the only thing that I could actually think of one particular client at the time, and it worked.
I must
You
remember to
know.
make sure I'm wearing underpants or I'll deeply disappoint myself on a regular basis.
Yeah, well, it's whether you can actually deal with the trauma of suddenly seeing yourself leaping in front of a mirror.
No, definitely not. That is a vision that I think people do not want in their head. As if they'll be leaping in front of a mirror, start bollock naked. Jesus Christ, that even
But just,
scares me.
but just winding it back for a minute, you know, the longer that you actually look, the more that you apply the labels, and that's why the vision distorts.
So quite literally, as someone who's concerned with their physical appearance, you're going to get a more objective view by looking at yourself less.
Yeah, you do. You do.
And
You
yet,
actually need to,
what we tend to do is use any reflective surface we can fucking find to look at ourselves.
tabletops, everything,
Yeah,
marble floors, windows.
yeah.
Been
Shop
there, done it.
fronts, cars, yeah, you name it, anything. Oh, yeah. Especially if it's a particularly flattering angle.
Well, yeah, that's when you get the selfie out.
That's when you go back and check again.
Oh, do I really look like that? I'll just stay here.
Yeah, we are sad, aren't we? Really.
Very.
I do. The whole industry just seems to be a particular breeding for worsening um, mental health. Also, social media seems to be another one because it seems to be giving them ability to indulge. I mean, we all know about the term thirsty, and particularly it's generally applied to females, but that's unfair because there are as many thirsty men as there are thirsty females. But it does seem that the massive increase on social media use has magnified these problems within these people because it's given them an outlet where they can indulge.
Oh, you're also being given a platform without consequence.
Yeah, because you can actually filter out the negative because you can just delete it.
Yeah, you do, and there isn't. I mean, there is no consequence. You're not face to face with somebody that's going to shove your head down the toilet.
And it is quite. I find it quite strange that people will post a picture up, and you'll get the usual lectures that come out of the woodwork, be them both either female or male, with compliment after compliment after compliment. And then there may be a criticism, or maybe not even a criticism, maybe just a questioning, and that will get usually quite violently reacted to, but then it'll just get deleted and removed. And I find it fascinating that people can literally in their heads completely just gloss over the criticism.
Hmm.
And surely they must know deep down that there may be points or valid points behind what's being said, and that's why the reactions are so strong.
It is hard to. I mean, it's hard to take anyway. Criticism. It also depends on how it's delivered.
Oh,
I think
I
there's.
got battered after the first film, trust me.
Did you?
The abuse was wide ranging. Initially, I did find it difficult. I did find it difficult because obviously pitched as a bodybuilding film because it was the only way you could really pitch it.
Hmm.
But I've never particularly regarded myself as a bodybuilder. I'm a bloke that likes lifting big heavy weights and likes being big. I wouldn't really concern myself, I'd never really labeled myself that way. But it was a label that people understood.
Hmm.
And the abuse I got of he's not a builder, just a fat mess. Numerous, I mean, and when I say numerous, we're talking hundreds to thousands of stuff about drug abuse, which was to be expected to a degree. And the initial ones, yeah, I struggled at first, and then I started to just accept, you know what? Some of these are probably genuine criticism, and they did have genuine points, and some of this is just pure hate for the sake of hate. But at the end of the day, I just had to sit there and say, the opinions that count are the opinions of the people that I care for.
Hmm.
And if they're saying something, then I need to listen. But the rest, be mindful of it. But I had to sort of learn to balance it. What was difficult was when they started to bring in like my children or my wife into the criticism.
Well, there is no need for that. And again, it's how you deliver criticism. There seems to
I
be
mean,
less care
my
about how you
favorite
deliver.
my favorite comment of all the insults I ever got was, "He looks like a diseased cow."
What?
I actually like that one. I thought that was a beauty. Yeah, no, the second film, surprisingly, the second film, which is a lot darker, a lot deeper into me, a lot more emotional, and actually shows really everything going wrong. I mean, making a complete mess of things. I got very little personal criticism on
That's because there was negative in it.
that.
Probably. I
Very
mean, probably
little,
there was probably a lot of people identified with it as well.
which I
And that,
found quite fascinating. That the first one, which was more middle of the road, loads of criticism. The second one, which was really an hour and a half of watching someone fuck their life up, to be fair. Um, and yet the criticism of that was minimal, absolutely minimal.
Okay. Was the main viewing audience that was UK?
No, international sold in
Okay.
about 30, 30 odd different countries.
Uh, yeah, because I mean there
I
is
mean,
a
obviously, the vast majority is UK and America, but there's been a fair in Germany and the Scandinavian countries as well, to be honest.
uh, well, I mean the UK generally is pretty negative. There also seems to have been a decline um, in the ability within social interaction to deliver criticism uh, with that, with care and attention.
Why is that?
I honestly don't know. Probably one of my professors would probably know, but
I mean,
there
I
does
do find that as a nation, we are potentially probably one of the most negative countries out there.
absolutely.
Uh,
But
we don't
again,
praise success. We don't support people's successes. If
no.
anyone's successful, we tend to be bitter and twisted and vindictive and jealous. And
Hmm.
you see it in powerlifting, you see it in bodybuilding. Man, look at that! Yeah, but he must be on shitloads of drugs. What the
It,
fuck does it matter?
it doesn't matter. They've still actually succeeded.
Yeah,
Whatever their personal choice. And the thing is that their personal choice is none of your damn business.
but it does
You
seem
know,
to be an epidemic in this country.
there is. But again, there's no consequence. There used to be before social media. If you wanted
Got a
to
slap.
deliver, well, yeah, exactly. Or argued with, you actually had to state why you were making those comments. Um, like you have that person in front of you. There is no consequence now. The filters have reduced. People can say whatever they like to say, whatever their motivation may be, um, and be hurtful, and not have any kind of finesse or decorum in their ability to deliver any kind of criticism or something which has an opposing view.
But at the
Um,
same time, do you
but
feel we've gone too PC?
sorry, Dave, say that again. My headphones fell off.
I said at the same time, do you feel that we've gone too PC?
At the same time, where it matters, we've gone too PC and are not prepared to debate, and we're not able to take feedback. I
Hmm.
think there's
Yeah, I think we are very sensitive as a nation,
uh,
possibly
but
a
we
little
used to
bit
be able
overly.
to. We
Pardon?
used to be able to. We used to be able to take criticism. The Great Britain was one of the best debating countries in the world. Look at the House of Commons. Where you could actually have a right old ding dong and walk away still respecting the other person, but not agreeing with their point of view. I've got many friends that we have vastly opposing views on some things, but still friends. And you still respect that person
Definitely,
and
and
you
I mean
still like them.
it's that variance of opinion that makes life colourful, and I think a difference of opinion is important because you should. I mean, I challenge people through what I do. I put videos out challenging people on the uses. It's not a case of you're wrong to use that much or you're wrong. It's a case of just stop and challenge yourself because I think it's
Yeah,
healthy to challenge your decisions, to challenge your thought process, and just to go, well, hang on a minute, can I justify what I'm doing? Do I
it does
justify
make
the
you.
methods I use? And,
It,
and I think it's healthy that you allow people to question that instead of just shutting it down and wrapping yourself in the bubble of security and not allowing yourself to be challenged because then you go blundering along and you never question what you're doing and then you wonder why you've never progressed or you've never changed or whatever it may be.
I do remember one bodybuilding competition that I did, and I knew when I looked in the mirror I wasn't ready. I knew my condition wasn't right. I knew I wasn't there, and yet everybody around me was telling me I looked the best I ever had.
Yeah, you get a
You
lot of
know,
blowing smoke up your ass, don't you?
well, yeah, and you know it's not there. But if you look again at the change of social dynamics recently, the way that we interact, there is more conflict, but less conflict face to face. Women don't do conflict face to face. Men are close to conflict face to face, but that is now disappearing because of social media, where they've got a platform, again, as I said before, with no consequence,
So,
apart from somebody arguing with them online. And as you said, well, they just get deleted.
so
You know,
what
so
what you're saying is that women have always been bitches, and now men are turning into bitches.
oh, Dave, don't. No. What a bastard.
I'm just
No,
simplifying things for the less academic of my viewers.
oh my God. No. Different communication styles, we call it. It's
No, but
influential speaking, we call
you
it.
know, there is that stereotypical image that women have always been prone to, shall we say, discuss their fellows behind their backs,
Mhm.
and yet I see that behaviour more and more in males.
In males, absolutely.
It does, and
Absolutely.
almost, and I mean we're going way off topic here, but it does almost seem that there is a almost a merging of the genders.
Um, well, if you look at advertising,
Well, you look at, I mean, from a point of behavioural patterns,
mhm,
fashion, body image, it does seem that the two genders are getting closer and closer to each other with behaviour and things of that nature, where the less stereotypical separation is no longer there.
or do you think that maybe men are being more exposed as being themselves?
I'm not sure. I don't know if men are being more feminized, if women are being more masculinized, or if it's just a case of there's because there's more of a freedom of expression. There's a more true representation, whereas before you had to act like a man and you had to act like a woman. I don't know. I honestly don't know.
I think there's been an increase in the pressure on men to be more open, and there's an expectation on them to be a multitude of things, from hunter-gatherer all the way through to, almost metrosexual. You know,
There seems to be more, definitely male desires seem to be more metrosexual. Whether that's something that's always been there or whether that's something that's a developing trend, I don't know. But when you look at what most men aspire to look like, that image has definitely shifted. I mean, we've gone from your Arnold Schwarzenegger in the 70s and your He-Man type characters through to literally fucking vampire type characters now, um, where the physique
no
is
judgment.
no, no, it's all. No, it's all. Where the physique is definitely less overly masculine.
Mm.
Um, Women, I'm not sure. There's a big boom in women usage. I don't know if there's anything behind that, but I think that's to a degree misinformation led. I mean, the bikini classes and the fitness classes particularly within bodybuilding, have grown massively over the last few years. But with those is almost the idea that in order to compete, you must be taking some sort of assisting chemical. The female powerlifting seems to be growing quite well as well. Is that something you've noticed?
Um, yes, I have, but it's more with the ABPU, the tested side.
So it's
Has
more
grown.
it's more the natural side.
Yeah,
Hmm.
and they are fabulous, absolutely
No,
fabulous. I've seen
I
a
went.
decline actually with the women and usage
Yeah,
from when I
there
started.
definitely is a move away from the extremes within females. It would appear, but you've seen it in female bodybuilding, haven't you? Female bodybuilding doesn't exist anymore, as he did. It's all been scaled down and toned down to a more feminized, softer sort of physique in a way. There's not the
Mm.
extreme muscle masses of the days gone by.
Which is quite sad.
I mean, those
Actually.
women still exist. I mean, I've got a couple of clients who are that nature where it's just a case of I want to be an absolute freak. The downside for those women is they don't have a competitive platform,
No, not anymore.
and
Not
they've had to
anymore. They don't.
completely. Though I was annoyed at this, and I thought it was absolutely fucking disgusting of the federations. They pushed female bodybuilding to be more extreme, more extreme, more extreme, more extreme, and these girls had sacrificed a lot. There were obviously those that had gone a very long way to almost changing their sexualities with the drug use. There was those that managed it quite well and remained quite a level of femininity. But at the end of the day, the sport was driving these women to be bigger and drier and leaner and freakier. And then all of a sudden it went, well, there ain't enough of you, so fuck off. We're not doing it anymore. And there's all these women that had been driven by the sport to become bigger and bigger freaks that were suddenly stood there going, what the fuck do we do now? You've just
Well,
left. You've just
yeah.
abandoned me. You've created this creature of what I now am, and then you've just abandoned me and not given me anything to do with it.
And change the rule. They changed the rules. They changed the goalposts.
They did
Which is
everything,
it.
and it was like you can't push people in a competitive direction, particularly when it's a competitive direction that has long-lasting effects on their femininity because of the drug use they're now having to do to reach the standards that you as a competition body are setting,
Mhm.
to then turn around and go, oh, sorry, ladies, we've changed his mind. You've got a social responsibility there.
But we're also talking about ticket sales.
Yes, I know.
Bums on seats, and I still believe that the change that happened was, I don't know whether it was because of social change or whatever it would be. And I actually remember I was competing bodybuilding the year they brought a female figure in. I remember the first female figure girl that I saw, and I went, what is this? Because I was physique. It's like, what is this small person doing here? What's going on? And it was, it was quite it was a mind fuck,
I
for
mean,
us.
I'm
And
not
then,
taking anything away from the people that compete in these classes because, all right, when they first started, it was a bit shit. But now there are some outstanding physiques in some of these classes.
there are incredible ones, but I don't see why they couldn't have left the women's, I'm going to say proper, the original women's physique in and
No,
kept the platform.
I mean, I know the WIDA organization for years had a drive about making bodybuilding an Olympic sport. It was obsessed with it. And when they brought the classic physique in for the men, the driver behind that was to try and get a division that was drug free that could then translate into an Olympic sport.
Hmm.
Didn't happen, as always, got bastardized by the drugs, didn't quite go the route they wanted it to. And I do think that the other classes have been an element of revenue, definitely, and also an element of trying to gain a broad spectrum social acceptance to broaden the marketability of the sport and therefore, again, increase the revenue.
Yeah, yeah.
But why they couldn't run female bodybuilding classes as a loss leader, and I mean, when they dropped it out of the Olympia, it was like, what the fuck? There was never not enough competitors for that
Mm,
competition.
mm.
Granted, I can understand that the British feds, sometimes they were struggling, and a lot of shows you'd get one if you were lucky.
Well, that's true. That is true.
Um, so that there was some responsibility to be held by the athletes themselves in the fact that they were competing, but at the Olympia level, there was always enough athletes. So I didn't understand why that got dropped. It just didn't seem unfair.
I,
It
I
very
think
much.
their argument was social pressure, which I don't actually believe, or that it may have been perceived social pressure by them.
Yeah,
But I mean, I don't think you'll ever know unless they actually talk about it. Really.
which they never will.
Well, yeah, probably not.
Yeah.
But Mr.
Well,
Crossland,
we've gone way off track here.
we certainly have. Sorry about
No, it's all right. It's good. It is good. So going back to more mental health stuff,
that.
and what we really supposed to be talking about. Would you say broad spectrum now? Would you say mental health within our sports, so powerlifting, bodybuilding, strongman, those sort of things, weightlifting, even kettlebells. Well, okay, maybe not kettlebells. Uh,
Kettlebells.
and actually, potentially, particularly CrossFit. Would you? I know. Would you? Would you
Thanks for
I
that.
feel like I'm going to get a bottle of test and wave it around now to purify the air. Uh, would you say that there is a genuine underlying potential concern for the mental health of people within these sports, or would you say
Um,
it's typically quite healthy?
in the powerlifting side of things, no. I think that the motivation, the reasons for getting into certainly the powerlifting and the sports that they enter into before going into powerlifting, I don't think there's any kind of concern about mental health at all. If anything, I know of a number of people where it's actually helped them either dealing with social anxiety, or they happen to be low level or mid level autistic, so dealing with various problems, and it's actually helped them focus, given them drive, and actually helped them work through other issues in their lives. It's given them something else and some self-worth and a little bit of identity where they felt they might have been getting lost.
Yeah, I know
Um,
one in particular who springs to mind, who it's been a great benefit for, and he's quite a successful powerlifter as well now.
yeah.
And I know he left for a while, and his mental health definitely declined when he stopped competing.
Is that, he didn't by any chance compete last weekend, did
He did, yes.
he? He did. All right, okay. Yeah, so it can give an awful lot. I think powerlifting is less um, less attractive to those who require some kind of underpinning of self-esteem.
Well, I
Um,
suppose the platform for praise is a lot smaller, isn't it?
the platform because there's more room for fucking it all up, really.
Well, no, not
And
just
when you
that.
do,
But your praise comes from your competition platform, where so you're not really going to generate a lot of praise or attention
mm-mm,
from your training to compete. Whereas as a bodybuilding, your praise comes from your physique, and you can gain that praise at any level.
yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, everybody posts, not everybody, but many people post training videos, and there's lots of hell yeahs, and that's going great. And it's genuinely meant.
Yeah,
Um, but it doesn't matter a damn what you do in training. It's got to be delivered on platform. Yeah, and
exactly. You
that's
you have that penultimate point, which is the platform,
yeah.
where with physique development, you don't have to step on a stage to reveal your developed physique, do you? You can reveal it at any point.
Well, in powerlifting, you'll be asked, what do you lift? And the majority of powerlifters will say what their maximum lift on platform has been. And my
Mm.
max bench in the gym has been 230. My max bench on platform has been 215. And I'll say
Well,
215, not 230.
you need to sort it out then, love, because you're 15 kilos short.
Yes, yeah, I know. I so do. I'm hoping to in a few weeks.
Do you think what do you think, in all honesty, if you could get your brain working properly, not that it doesn't, but you know what I mean, you could deal with
Mm.
the lifting anxieties, and you could have an uninterrupted injury-free training. What do you actually realistically think you could peak out in the bench?
Single ply 232.5.
Why the
Multi
32.5? What an odd number!
232.5. Because I'm working out numbers, because I'm thinking back to the 230s that I've done in training, and that I had just a tiny bit more. And in multiply, I was going to go back to multiply maybe next year. I'd like to say 250.
At your current body weight.
Yeah,
That's insane.
but I'd also like to have a go at raw bench. I'm a bit crap on raw bench because I've been equipped lifter for so long. But I did 135, and that was after 4 weeks just fucking about, not really knowing what I was doing.
Is there a lot of
Um,
difference between raw and equipped weightlifting? I don't really
Oh
know.
my God, yeah, absolutely. It's like night and day.
I
Yeah,
would have thought that the stronger raw you are, the stronger equipped you're going to be.
no, it doesn't translate because it's so fiddly, Dave. It's mega fiddly, and it's all about, how shirt's positioned, where it's positioned, how it fits, your body weight on the day, whether you are 1 millimeter off with your shoulders back and the position and the leverage, and it's just equipped lifting is fabulous because it is so hit and miss, and you've got to have it when it all comes together once in your lifetime on the day, and it is usually once in a day. You can lift anything, but the rest of the time it's remarkably different.
Bloody hell. I never actually realised quick lifting was so technical.
It's incredibly technical. And I still believe, and the multiply lifters will argue with me, that single ply is actually more technical than multiply because you get less assistance. So you're relying so much more on the technical aspect of actually using the shirt. The multiply guys will rip me apart for that. It's probably because I'm a single ply lifter that I think that. But yeah, that's my opinion, and I'm open to be taken apart on that one. Yes, certainly, absolutely. But I'll tell them all they're wrong anyway.
So anyway, we digressed. We were talking about the mental health within the various factions of the sports that we're involved in or we associate with. And you were saying that the powerlifting, you think actually mental health is quite good there, and in general it's supportive and productive in that measure.
Mm-hmm.
I see bodybuilding as being very detrimental to most people's mental health.
Mm-hmm.
And those that I have seen it improve the mental health, I've seen it be both an aid but also a negative because they become dependent.
Okay. Okay.
So those that have suffered with low self-esteem and a low body image and have done something and have actually pursued and improved and all credit and praise to them, but then they've come to a point where they now can't leave the training because all their confidence is based around their physical appearance.
And it's their identity. They've actually
And they
created an
start to
identity.
develop very I mean, the simple one is, I can't miss 2 days training. Why? Because I'll lose size. What the fuck? Ain't happening. It's all in your head. But to get to that point where they are now socially active. They now do interact with society. They are now confident to go out and do things.
Mm-hmm.
But it's with a very big but. So to me, the bodybuilding side and that general health and fitness side does actually seem to be more detrimental. And I've seen a few studies that, all right, the studies were primarily based around drug use, but the controls were non-user, non-trained, trained non-user, and trained user.
Mm-hmm. And
even the trained element was showing a higher level of depressive episode against the non-trained element. So it would seem that the science research does back up that people that get involved with the physical sport of changing the way they look do have more mental health issues. But I'm not sure if it would carry across into that weird sport of CrossFit and strongman.
I don't think so. The bodybuilding side of things is much more introspective.
Yes.
So you're not actually getting the balance of external checks as much. You're not interacting externally as much because the focus.
I think the other problem is as well is it's success is opinionated.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
When you lift, you all right, yeah, we've got the arguments about was it to depth and all that crap in a squat, but when you lift, you either lift it or you don't lift it. It's pretty clear cut to a large degree, where the whole process of judging success in bodybuilding is subjective.
Completely. And
because you're asking 7 to 9 people their opinion on how you look.
And those 7 to 9 people will all have completely different opinions, regardless of the marking criteria that they've got in front of them.
Most of them don't even know what the marking criteria is.
Yeah, well, that's true.
Being on that side of the bench, and most judges don't judge to criteria. To a degree, they do, but they predominantly judge to opinion. So, which is where we've had a lot of problems in the past with some of the female classes, because certain classes were supposed to be of a softer tone and this, and the judges couldn't do that because they were so used to judging based
That's
on condition.
historic, though. That's historic from day one. Anyway, regardless of the classes with the women, but I think the men are certainly suffering from it apparently more now. But you would be much more of an expert on that now than me.
And do you get much interaction with people that partake in that other weird sport? That of the fit of cross?
Don't twitch when you say that. You twitch when you say CrossFit.
Dirty word!
An awful lot of our lifters have actually come from CrossFit.
They saw the light, did they? They saw the light.
They did see the light. They saw the light. They enjoyed squatting, or they enjoyed deadlifting, or whatever it was they were doing. Fancied to go at powerlifting, and off they went. I do, unfortunately, I think, give an awful lot of the boom in powerlifting over to the success of CrossFit.
So CrossFit has fed your sport very, very strongly then?
I think so. Regardless of what you feel about that, I think it's true.
It's like a lot of things. I've got no issue with it at all, but there are some practitioners that give it a bad name, unfortunately. But there is that in any sport at the end of the day, isn't there?
Absolutely. But the point is really that CrossFit was a platform to get people out and off their asses. And an enjoyable and fun way, an interactive way, in a group sport and activity. And again, research has shown that actually participation on a group basis and inclusion will increase results and resilience, etc., etc. So there's a vast amount of positives with that, regardless of what you think about CrossFit. But it got people up and off their ass. I was challenged actually about what was it, that Pokemon Go thing? That Pokemon.
Yeah, where you ran around trying to find. Yeah, that was a mix. Like you say, it got people off their asses, but it also got them walking in front of fucking cars because they were looking for a Pokemon.
Yeah, absolutely it did. But I got challenged about that because I was absolutely appalled by the whole thing. Put a post up on Facebook, and I had a couple of people saying, "Excuse me, but it's getting people and kids up and out the house that just didn't budge before that." And I have to admit, that's right.
Yeah, it did.
It is right.
My youngest is she's nigh on a fucking hermit. She is. I've constantly put my boot up her ass to try and get her out the door, but it's painful. It's really painful. Well, we have rattled on for some time. And it's been very enjoyable. Thank you very much.
Well, I hope it was useful.
Even though it's taken me nigh on 6 months to nail you down to do this.
Yeah, sorry. I'm sorry.
For those that are listening, this is Mrs. Emma James, that will start a Facebook message conversation with you, and then it suddenly ends, and halfway through a question, and sort of picks up 3 weeks later.
Well, yeah. I have a demanding husband as well.
You are a bit, well, tell Kale to piss
off. It doesn't work. He's nearly 100 he's 130 something kilos. It doesn't work so well.
Well, not only that. What did he bench? 3 what?
Oh, bless him. He benched 365.
365.
He did, but it's. I think that's definitely under par. He should be doing 400.
Fuck.
Do you know what?
I'm going.
I'll tell you.
Just ruined my day.
I'll tell you something. He's put so much work and so much effort into hitting these numbers. He's put nearly 60 kilos on his bench in 2 years.
That's good going.
Reduced some of the sort of accessory bits and pieces, if you get the drift.
Yeah.
And his performance is so much better. But I have never ever fancied a man as much as I do my husband when I see him in competition kit. And I think it's particularly in the leotard with the knee sleeves. I have never fancied anything so much. It's definitely, even with a bench shirt on, I can't deny that man when he wants anything. I cannot.
I could have very happily gone the rest of my life without knowing that.
It needs to be shared.
Thank you for that. And on that note, I'm going to stop recording.
All right. Take care, David. Thank